Hello everyone, today I am joined by Ben, the founder of Earthling Plants, a regenerative permaculture project based in the Wicklow Mountains of Ireland. Ben is a former professional chef who took his relationship with food all the way back to its source, the soil. Through Earthling, he's created a thriving food forest and regenerative nursery, growing diverse, perennial, and often forgotten edible plants without synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, or herbicides. But what really interested me about Ben's work is that it goes far beyond gardening. His mission is about reconnecting people with their food, rebuilding community resilience, improving human health, and showing us that agriculture doesn't have to work against nature. It can actually regenerate it. Today, we're talking about food forests, permaculture, and our relationship with the land, and what becomes possible when ordinary people start taking responsibility for how their food is grown. Please enjoy. Hello, Ben. Thank you for coming on. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm good. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, oh, great. So happy to have you. For those listening who have never heard of you and the kind of work you're doing, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. My name is Ben. I am the founder and CEO of Earthling Plants. It's an Irish regenerative plant nursery based in Ireland. So we grow and sell plants all over Europe. We kind of specialize in edible plants, rare ones as well, things you might not have heard of, sort of exciting and unusual vegetables, some medicinal herbs. We sell some ornamental, just nice flowers and things as well. Only started about 10 months ago. It's quite new, still finding our footing a little bit, and yet we've grown very, very quickly, which is very inspiring to know that there is that level of demand and interest out there, because it's my passion and I'm very enthusiastic and passionate about all of this, but it's nice to know that there are others out there who feel the same way, who want to preserve nature and grow better food. And yeah, it's been a good journey.
No, I've been following you along with some of your journey, and it definitely looks like a good journey. Could you tell us a little bit about why you started to do permaculture and why you started to actually grow these plants in the first place?
Okay, well, I mean, it started quite a while ago, maybe 12 years ago-ish. My mother was diagnosed with cancer, and there was a lot of other relatives of mine who had cancer, and there's cancer around everywhere. I mean, everybody has a friend or a relative or a friend of a friend. It's pretty common these days. And it just seemed to be happening more and more and more. And I just kind of decided, right, I need to do something about this. I'm not willing to sit around and probably become sick myself like everyone else does. Yeah, I wanted to take control of my own health. So the first step for that, because I had been working as a chef at the time, was through food. So I started seeking out healthier food and realized very quickly that it's almost impossible to find, at least in the supermarkets in Ireland. Half the food, it's food. It's not really food. It's toxic. Delicious, yes, but there's no nutrition in it. And then even the vegetables that you're getting, they're bland, they're empty, they're tasteless, they don't have any flavor. And if there's no flavor, that's because there's no nutrition in them. So the first step then was to start growing my own food, because it was the only way to guarantee that it was of high quality, it didn't have chemicals in it, it was grown in good, healthy, alive soil. So I started growing vegetables, and I grew quite a lot of vegetables for myself, my family, my friends, people in the community. And that was a really nice step, but it still didn't quite seem to be everything. It wasn't quite a complete system. It was out of alignment a little bit. You know, in order to grow the vegetables, I had to clear the space of all weeds. I had to bring in compost or manure. It wasn't an ecosystem. It wasn't fully functional. Then I started learning about things called food forests online. It just seemed like the logical progression from a vegetable garden. So it's for those of you who don't know what a food forest is, I didn't either at the time. It was fascinating to me. It's an ecosystem. So you're designing a full forest ecosystem that produces food. So, you know, like a natural forest doesn't need any supervision. It doesn't need any intervention from humans. It just grows. It feeds itself with leaves. Nobody waters it. So you're designing a system like that where all the components, or at least most of the components, produce food. So you could have nut trees in your sort of upper canopy, And then underneath that, you'd have fruit trees, and then say berry bushes, and then herbs and sort of unusual perennial vegetables spreading across the ground, and then some climbing plants like grapes climbing up through the trees, and edible mushrooms on the bottom. And it takes a bit of know-how and a bit of work to set it up. But once it's set up, it's an ecosystem, and you can just walk away, and it just pumps food at you every single year. The amount of life that comes into one of those spaces is pretty incredible. So I got hooked on that straight away, and I immediately went and started to build my own. We had an acre of land that's really scrappy, very low quality. It's on a hill, it's full of rock, it's quite shady. No one had any use for it, so I just decided, yeah, cool, I'll have a go at that. And then very slowly, because I didn't know what I was doing, I taught myself, and I was reading books. I built this food forest to the place that it is now. And in order to save money, I started propagating plants and generating new plants from the plants that I had already. And then it just sort of suddenly occurred to me, I could probably make a living off this if I just grew more plants, you know. And that was the birthplace of the idea of Earthling Plants. I was working as a chef up until quite recently, and I have no problem with chefing. It's just not what I want to be doing with the rest of my life. So that was the decision, that if I don't take action, I could end up being a chef for the rest of my life, stuck in a career that I didn't really choose for myself. So I went all in, built Earthling Plants, and it's been a massive success. It's very exciting.
That's incredible. I love that story so much. And it's so cool to hear about how a passion's kind of driven you to more knowledge, to build on your knowledge, and for it to lead to something so self-sustaining and so providing. That's so incredible that you've been able to share that and spread that to other people who might not have the space for a regenerative ecosystem like that. I've heard you mention food as medicine. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know that we all have, you know, we think we're eating healthy. Like you said, at the grocery store, we have fruits and vegetables but they might not taste. Some people might not understand or like really see the difference in taste. But for you, and knowing that more flavor means more nutrients and, you know, thus medicine, can you tell us a little bit about how food is medicine?
Absolutely. This was a new discovery to me at the time. You know, when I started growing my own crops and I got my first harvest and I ate the first carrot that I grew instead of a store-bought carrot, I was kind of shocked. Where's all this flavor coming from? This isn't what carrots are supposed to taste like to me. And then I did more research and understood that as plants are grown in biologically active soils, so a fertile soil full of biology, full of life, a healthy ecosystem, those plants have access to more minerals and more micronutrients in the soil rather than dependent on the fertilizers that the farmers give them. So these plants are able to draw more into themselves, so they're more densely packed with nutrients. When we eat them, we are even gram per gram, you know, you can get away with eating less of these kinds of foods and give yourself more nutrition. I heard someone say that in order to get the same amount of vitamin C from oranges today, we'd have to eat 6 oranges compared to our grandparents would have only needed 1 when they were our age, you know. So as our soils become more depleted and our food is becoming less or more empty, we are becoming malnourished. And I believe that that's part of the root cause to all the sickness that's around us today. I also believe that there isn't really a distinction between food and medicine. We often see medicine as something that comes out of a bottle from a pharmacy. To me, that's medication. I draw a personal distinction there, a difference in definitions. To me, medication is a substance given to someone that treats their symptoms. You know, you have a headache, you take medication, it makes your headache go away. It doesn't actually make you better, it just makes you feel better. Whereas medicine, it's giving your body the stuff that it needs in order to fix the problem that's causing the symptom. You know, it's targeting the root cause of the problem. So when you have healthy food and you eat a diverse diet full of all different kinds of plants and whatever it is that you choose to eat, you don't really need medication anymore because your body's just able to look after itself. It's wonderful. You know, I don't go to the doctor anymore. I can't even remember the last time I needed to. It was kind of a side effect or a side bonus, I suppose, learning that distinction, but also understanding that modern medicine, if you want to use that term, it's quite new. That's only been around for the last 100 to 200 years. Plant medicine, the original medicine, even though today it's called alternative medicine, that's been around for millennia, like much longer. That's the way humans have been working with plants since the beginning of our species. It's tried and tested.
That's so wild. It's crazy to imagine a world that you're living in where food grows itself and bodies fix themselves. It's so far
Hmm.
off from where so many people are at. Why don't you think
Hmm.
these kinds of regenerative systems and nutrient soils are implemented everywhere? Why aren't they?
Um, it's kind of a pessimistic view, I guess, but I reckon it is due to the massive corporations that have a lot of power and influence across the world. These huge companies that own all the other companies, that control the food systems, they control the medication systems, they control the seed companies for even people who want to grow their own food. They have to buy them from this same company, the one that grows all the food that ends up in the supermarkets. I think it's a system of control. If everybody was growing food like this, then there wouldn't be any demand or any profit for these companies. So I think it's a very cleverly engineered system that doesn't want us
Yeah.
to be independent and healthy, because then there'd be no money for them. And I think it wasn't
Well, that
that long
sounds
ago that people did live like that. All communities had communal spaces. They ate together, they grew food together, small scale, with care, with intent. It wasn't that long ago. It's a reasonably recent shift. At least the perspective for me back home in my community is that that's, a long time ago, kind of a far distant fairy tale kind of dream. But a couple of generations ago, I think that would have been much more common than it is today.
Do you see this kind of regenerative food system being something that can grow or something that people can start to implement locally and then
Absolutely.
kind of spread out?
Yeah, I would even argue that it must. I think it's a necessity. We're facing so many challenges in the world today. Human health is a big one, but the global warming crisis, everyone will agree to that. I'm here in the south of France at the moment, and a significant portion of the countryside around me just got ravaged by a wildfire. And it's not just, a little area. This is entire mountains, a village. We're seeing burnt out houses and cars. That kind of stuff is happening more and more. Even in Ireland, a country where it rains all the time, we're having wildfires. There's current mountains ablaze in Ireland. That just never happens. So
Yeah.
there's quite a few of these sort of scary events that are sort of snowballing and picking up speed in the world today. And I believe that the way we interact with the world around us, the way we produce our food, can fix multiple, if not all of those problems simultaneously. So these food forest systems, or it doesn't even have to be a food forest, but a food growing system engineered with that kind of mindset or philosophy, they capture more carbon than a conventional agricultural system. So they're pulling carbon out of the air, putting it in the soil. They reduce erosion because there's more plant coverage on the ground instead of constantly tilling up bare earth. They enhance local biodiversity. David Attenborough claims biodiversity loss is the number one threat we're facing on the planet at the moment.
Mm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a food forest has the capacity to be more biologically diverse than any other than any other ecosystem on the planet. So
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty amazing. You can pack all this food in, and then we're fixing our nutrition and our medicinal needs all in the same little bubble. And in order to grow these things, you need to be out in them. You can't just run a tractor through them. So then we have that connection with our food, where it comes from. We can see it, we touch it. We're interacting with the soil, the microbes. All of that has an effect on our health and our mental health as well.
Wow. And that's incredible. And mental health and community is kind of my field of interest, Ben. So
Hmm.
I have an odd question for you, but I wanted to know, like, with all your hands-on work and all your growing knowledge and the learning you've done, what has soil taught you about people?
Hmm. What has soil taught me about people? That's a very interesting question. I think soil has taught me a lot about people, about life, about nature. But to answer that question specifically, I would say that soil has taught me that people and the things that happen within us as people, it's not as disconnected or isolated as we are told, or at least as I have been told through my educational system. And we're told that there are isolated incidents. There is a problem with your eyes, there is a problem with your wrist, I don't see it that way. I think it's all one interconnected system, and these are symptoms that flare up as like a warning light in your car because of an underlying fault. I feel we are deeply connected. There's this flow of life, of energy within the soil, interconnectedness, everything working in harmony, everything has its place. I think we're the same. I don't see a difference or a distinction there. We operate the same way. People say we must reconnect with nature. That kind of implies a disconnection with nature, that we have to go and form the connection. But the way I see it, we are nature. We're animals, same as all the other animals out there. We've just built artificial lives for ourselves. But understanding that we are nature means that we operate with the same laws as the rest of nature. Once you understand how soil functions, we have kind of linear approaches to it. I need to grow crops, therefore I must dump fertilizer, or I have a pest issue, therefore I must dump insecticides. I think human health is very similar in that manner. Yes, so I see soil and people, nature, it all operates in the same way through my eyes. It's connectivity, synergy, harmony. We like to think of things, or humans like to categorize and label things in an orderly manner because it helps us to understand the world around us. But nature, it's more fluid. I think everything is interconnected, everything has a role and a purpose, and it all interlocks, interweaves. I think soil health, soil life definitely works like that. And I think humans are the same.
I do agree. And I think we hear this a lot in language when we talk about humans getting in the flow or working in the flow of creativity or chilling out, riding the wave. You hear a lot of phrases that kind of capture this image of us being best at work and best at peace when we're in flow. So can you tell us a little bit about what humans have to really understand about nature in order to actually become the individuals in the communities that will lead this change in the world to actually start to create these kinds of healthier food systems locally and then expand?
In order to start it locally and to expand, I think we have to be the change that we want to see. I think it starts with us. It seems like this big, impossible task. The world's an enormous place, and there's so much pressure out there and so much information pushing us in certain directions that it seems like, well, what could I do? I'm only one person. But I think by one person taking action and living true to themselves, being authentic and immersing themselves in that connective flow around them, that flow state, as you were referring to, being intuitive and passionate about whatever it is that individual might be passionate about. For me, it's nature and biodiversity. For some people, it's, I don't know, music or acting or some kind of a craft, whatever it may be. I think that state of being is closer to sort of harmonizing with the flow of energy and nature around us. I think it starts with us, and the more of us that do that and begin to interact with each other, it kind of builds momentum. The snowball starts rolling down the hill, and before we know it, there's a whole movement there. And that's really the next step of the mission for my business with Earthling Plants. Like, I've been doing all this for myself, for my health, my family. That was the beginning. But then I realized a couple of years ago that it's not really enough. I need to share this with the world. I've figured something wonderful out here, and I can be of service. It's kind of selfish, nearly, to keep this to myself. It's my duty to pass this out there, and I think that sentiment is kind of crucial for people to share their gifts with the world, to not be afraid, to not be self-conscious, or even if you are afraid, just to do it anyway, to put yourself out there, to lean into that flow state, that connectivity, to find a way that you fit into the world. That was probably the biggest learning for me. And the more I lean into that, the more things kind of just line up for me. It's kind of amazing how opportunities just appear seemingly by random, but I reckon it's part of that. As I'm connecting myself into all of this, things are finding me instead of me having to search for them.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's true. I've heard that so often and I've experienced it for myself. When you're in alignment, everything just
Hmm.
comes to you as it's supposed to. Like it's not supposed to be an uphill battle. And if you treat it like one, then that's what it will be. Well, what is it that you think let's say I love your vision. I love that idea and it's crazy to imagine how we can go from where we are now to this what seems like a utopian kind of society that you speak of and dream of. What do you think? Like, let's talk about if there was one belief that majority of people held that was stopping them from taking the first step or actually moving towards flowing more in as individuals or in actually being able to implement and create food forests in their society for health and wellness and food sources that don't cost them, all their money. What do you think that one belief would be that is stopping people or getting in the way of this idea that this is possible?
I think that is an excellent question. It seems like a far-fetched fantasy fairy tale idea, and many people have said that to me. And initially, when I couldn't see my vision and where it was going, I just said, I don't care, I'm doing it anyway. I believe in it, so I'm going to make it happen. But if I was to pick one belief system or sentiment that I reckon is holding people back, it's not that simple. We're led to believe that it's not that simple. The world doesn't work like that. I don't believe that for 1 second. I think it is that simple. Just, just go do it. If make one small action in one day, and then the next day choose another small action on that day. Whether that's choosing to recycle something instead of throwing it in the bin, whether that's choosing to buy your fruit from a local producer, even if it's 50 cent, €1 more expensive than the supermarket. If it's a tiny bit more inconvenient, those actions, those tiny little changes in your life, they are sort of like it's like voting. Nearly, you're putting your vote into something that has more meaning, more traction. You're taking the power away from the corporations and putting them into the hands of people doing things in a manner that you agree with. Those kinds of little small changes, they're pretty simple. That's all it takes. Imagine if a few million people started doing that even once a week, just one little shift. I think that would be pretty dramatic pretty quickly.
Yeah. No, you're so right. I think we all do have this crazy mentality like, well, I'm just one person, what can I do? But you're so right. When we all do one thing, it really will change everything.
Hmm.
Can you tell us a
And
story, Ben?
even,
People love stories. Yeah, sorry, go
hmm
ahead.
I was going to say, even trying to forget about changing the world, if you just change our own lives, just focus on what we have access to and what we have control over, change the world around us, my world. It's nice to try and fix all the problems in the world, but I think in changing our worlds, that has an outwards growing effect, and eventually it'll reach the rest of the world. Earthling Plants is living proof of that. I was just focusing on me and my career and my health, and yet now suddenly I have this huge movement with tens of thousands of people ready to spread across the world. That wasn't the plan, but it's the way it's going.
Yes. No, you're so right. We do need to focus on what we can be doing to better ourselves, and it really does start to bleed out into everything we do. I believe, like you said with the soil, everything is connected. Every little adjustment we make in our personal life and with whatever acts of service we can provide for others, it all benefits. It comes back around to ourselves and to our communities, our societies, our ecosystems. What do you think it actually takes to make resilient communities?
Resilient communities. I think that's an important step in that whole vision of mine, or that whole process. It doesn't work, or I don't think it can work from an individual standpoint, or people all trying to do things independently. I'm definitely guilty of that myself. I tend to try and just do it everything myself, and I have done successfully for a while, but it's not realistic to go on and work at that level of intensity indefinitely. And it's also unnecessary. I think we're social creatures by nature. I think we're built for community. We're built for cooperation. And I even remember reading a psychological study somewhere that we get a higher dopamine burst from giving someone a gift of a thing, even than I would get from receiving that same item from someone. Like, we're hardwired to give, to share, to help, to to create. So I think in order to build more resilient communities, that was your question, right?
Yeah.
In order to build that, I think we need to lean into that, to share, to support each other, to connect, to try and actually care. Everyone has these surface level connections, especially with social media now. It's all about appearances. I think we need to get past that. Social media is great. It's a valuable tool, but I think the depth of connection that we're starting to lack more and more recent years is probably part of the answer there. To just put 5 minutes aside to actually connect with the person who's selling you your groceries at the checkout, instead of just like, hi, yeah, nice day today, thanks, bye. What's your name? Tell me something about your life. Like that kind of stuff builds a sense of connection. And I think that'll have a knock-on effect. If that person has a better day because of it, they're more likely to go and do something similar. If we're all brightening up each other's days while also leaning into each other's gifts and strengths, like I said, supporting with your money. If you agree with, for example, the Earthling movement to buy plants from me instead of one of these massive corporations, then you're supporting that regenerative movement that'll help it to build speed. But you can do the same thing with anything. If you want a dog, go and rescue it from an animal shelter as opposed to from a breeding center or something like that. You're supporting the care, the regeneration, and helping to build other people's dreams as well. I think that's probably, from my standpoint anyway, that seems to be the way to do it.
I think it's a pretty good way. I think it's a really great way. And I think I've always been an advocate for supporting local business, because it's definitely a more intimate engagement.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely better for the seller and the buyer. Do you have any stories that you could share with us, Ben, that have anything to do to kind of help people understand the value of what you're doing, in the sense of like how it started to grow and what you might have like noticed with like some people that you started to get involved? Because I know you're from a small town in Ireland.
Very.
So what is that like when you like the crazy man down the road started doing some wild activities in the garden? How did that start to spread? Like, did people become more curious about what you were doing or want to start participating right away? Or how did that start to actually spread on a small scale that you could really see the impacts of in your small town?
That actually spread way faster than I was prepared for. All I was trying to do was sell plants at the beginning. That was the first step of the mission. The broader scale of what I'm planning now came later. But at that point, I was just trying to support myself and live a healthier, cleaner, happier life, I suppose. And life had other plans, I guess. But I started posting what I was doing online. A lot of my friends and family who were seeing my food forest saying, you're sitting on a gold mine here. You need to share this with the world. People will love it. So I started making reels, taught myself how to do it. And the feedback and the traction from the internet alone was mind-blowing. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people commenting and asking could they get involved, and asking could they come up and volunteer so they could learn from me, and asking for inspiration. Wow. Or maybe they have some problems with their own gardens and feeling inspired and being, okay, I want to start one like this. How? What's the first step? So, I mean, that's not in relation to my community. That was broader straight away, but people started to notice, I guess, in Hollywood. So very much, like you said, that crazy guy up in the mountains who was doing all these plants and things. But I had posters up around the place just to help people find my store to buy plants. And people started commenting me or contacting me through these posters, asking if I'd be willing to come and design a food forest for them on their land. Like, that's not something I was advertising. They wanted one in their own property. So there's now 1, 2, 3, 4 of them sort of either done or in process just in my local area. And I only started the business, like I said, 10 months ago. And one of them is now becoming the heart of a psychotherapy and wellness center. And they're talking about using it to host local events, to bring in people, to help connect them with the native plants of Ireland, so we could do sort of walks and talks. And she uses it as a part of her therapy process as well for her clients. Then there's another one now that's kind of helping to expand the nursery side of Earthling, of what we're doing, the plants. So that was a side of it that I didn't anticipate, and it's starting to bring the community together. So they're outreaching, they're saying, hey, yeah, you could come and run a workshop here in my food forest, or you could come and do that. It's snowballing pretty quickly. It's nice to see. And for me, someone who is quite introverted, I spend a lot of my time by myself looking after my plants. It's been really magical to have that sort of sense of community and togetherness, and a network starting to form, which has been an unexpected surprise from it, I suppose. Yeah.
Wow. That's such a beautiful story, Ben. That's crazy. And it's so cool how it's like the invisible hand. It just all kind of sorted itself out and grew on its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you have
That's
faith
incredible.
and just keep on going, just had some blind faith. It'll all figure itself out, and it did. I knew what I was doing was right, so I had patience.
That's so good. Would you say you could apply a lot of the like permaculture principles to like friendships and education and relationships?
Hmm. I actually have heard quite a few permaculturists online talk about how permaculture isn't an agricultural model. It's not a system for growing plants. It's a philosophy. It's a way of life. You know, the 12 permaculture principles. It's a set of guidelines on how to be harmonious, I guess, with the world around us. You know, to reduce waste and to find a yield, or to find a purpose or a benefit from the things that we do. To fair share as one of them, to share surplus, to help those in need. It's that kind of a mindset I get from it. So it's built around plants, but it's very easily applied to plants, friendships, communities, just life in general, I think. Okay, and another one of the principles then is fair share, to pass on surplus, to give back, or and that doesn't necessarily have to be, I have too many tomatoes, I'm going to give them some to my neighbor or something. It could be allowing space on your land for nature, or even allowing space within yourself for peace and healing, or fair share could be applied to kind of anything. So that's definitely the way I see the permaculture principles. It's more of a way to live your life rather than a way to grow food. I mean, it's both, but it's all inclusive.
Wow, that's incredible. Um, and with these kinds of principles, did you get taught them knowing that it was all kind of connected, or did you make those connections to the philosophy on your own?
All on my own. I'm entirely self-taught in this regard. I went to college and worked in a few different industries, but nothing even remotely related to what I'm doing now. This was my own journey, my own discovery, my own education. I went and learned about the permaculture principles, read about them, started to implement them a little bit into my own life. And I can never remember which order they're in, but one of them is to observe and to interact. So to observe the world around us, note patterns, and then to slowly interact, to involve ourselves in the natural patterns and cycles that happen around us. So that's kind of what I did. I started implementing the principles and then sat back and observed and waited to see what was happening before I made my own belief systems, or interpretations. I guess that's the word I'm looking for.
That's incredible. Observing and like interacting and responding to nature
Hmm.
and just learning from it by observing. That is not something we get to do too typically. Hey, Ben, if we're, I find a lot of the times we're not really observing much, but we are responding a lot to the systems that are in place. We're responding to bills needing to be paid on time. We're responding to traffic. We're responding to getting to work. We're responding to getting home, or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, purchasing our grocery store goods. Do you feel like there really is a chance for anyone really to get an opportunity to observe and interact and respond to nature in our modern day systems that we have implemented at the moment?
I definitely think there is. In fact, I know there is from my own personal experience. If anyone knows anything about mindfulness, slowing down, observing, kind of slowing down is, is probably the heart of it, really, is sitting back, observing, letting things flow, trying not to attach onto them, trying not to control, just allowing things to be. You're taking note without judgment or attachment, and letting them carry on. That's it. But that doesn't have to be about watching how a plant grows. That you can sit in your room, close your eyes, and observe how you're feeling in the moment. You can just pause in a supermarket instead of getting stressed and trying to get it done quickly. You can just pause and just observe people around you. How are they moving around? How are they interacting? How are they feeling? Is there a tension or stress or anger? Or, you can do that at any point in life, just to slow down, open up your observation, shift out of productivity and into just to learn, just to take it in. I think that shift, it's the first step. Slow down.
Why do you think we're rushing so much, Ben?
Hustle culture is a big one. We're all geared towards being productive and efficient. And it's probably just capitalism. And since the Industrial Revolution, we've all been geared towards produce more, and everything in our current society is, we associate value with productivity. If a company produces lots, then it's profitable. And if it's profitable, then it's a good company. And if a person is industrious and works hard and gets a lot done and accomplished, then they're admirable. Someone who just sits around all day but is at peace with the world, they tend to get less social standing in the culture that we're currently in. I think that's a shame, but I reckon it probably stems from the Industrial Revolution, and from that shift within our culture to build, grow, expand, always more. I think that's valuable. Without that, our cultures or our societies would never advance. But maybe we went too far in one direction, and maybe going too far and becoming a Buddhist monk is too far in the other direction, maybe somewhere in the middle, allowing space for both.
I like that. Allowing space for both, I think, is a good way to meet people in the middle here.
Mm-hmm.
Their big vision. With nature, it is so inherently just valuable as it is. And I think you're proving that more than ever, that nature as it is just incredibly valuable. And I know I've seen some of your content videos where you're really explaining some of the beautiful plants that exist on your land and what their purposes are. Just for fun, for anyone who's listening to this kind of talk for the first time, can you give us an example of one of your favorite plants and why it's your favorite, and what purpose it serves medicinally, or something cool that it does?
Is this a favorite plant in my food forest, or a favorite plant in the sort of native Irish ecology?
You pick, Ben. Give us the best one you got. Give us the best story.
That is a hard question to answer. There's a lot of plants out there.
Is there any that you've used for like medicinal purposes that you've like really needed, and then just been able to find everything you needed within the comfort of your own garden?
Yeah, quite a few. One that springs to mind is comfrey. Comfrey, if you're a gardener, is an extremely well-known plant. And if you're not a gardener, you've probably never heard of it before, but it is a magical plant. I'm actually not entirely sure where it originates from, but it's all over Europe. So we have a cultivated variety that doesn't spread by seed because it can be quite aggressive. So this one is sterile. It'll only spread where you put it, basically. And it has an enormously deep taproot. The taproot of a comfrey plant goes deeper than most trees. So it gets down into the subsoil, way, way down deep. And as it grows, it pulls minerals all the way up into its leaves. And then those leaves, you can cut them, and then put them, say, at the base of a fruit tree. So all those minerals that were down deep in the soil that the trees don't have access to are now suddenly sitting on the surface where the plants can feed on them. So it's a regenerative plant like that, and you can just keep chopping the leaves and it'll just keep regrowing. It's basically indestructible. So that's an amazing plant for that. But it has amazing medicinal properties as well. One of the more sort of common or folk names for it is knitbone. So people who broke their legs before the days of casts and hospitals, they would have made a poultice, which is basically just a paste from the leaves of this plant. and then strap it around, say, a sprained ankle, or if you like fractured a finger or something like that, strap it and wrap it up in cloth and leave it sit there for a good few hours. And the juices and the essential oils in that plant will soak in and be absorbed through the skin and help to mend and soothe all those problems. I had a problem with my foot a couple of years ago, and it had flared up, and I'm not entirely sure what it was, like a light sprain or something like that. But because I'm a gardener and I had to be on my feet, it wasn't healing, because I kept walking on it. It sort of lingered for maybe a week until I got kind of fed up. And I remembered, oh yeah, I have comfrey out there. Why don't I go try that? I remember hearing that it's great for those kinds of things. So I made a poultice and I wrapped it up and I sat down for a few hours. And by the time I stood up, I was good as new, fixed. Amazing stuff.
That's incredible, Ben. That just sounds like magic. It doesn't even sound real because it's just so uncommon knowledge
Mm-hmm.
to someone like me from the city. That's so crazy.
There are plants like that for every ailment, every issue that you could possibly imagine. And a lot of them just happen to taste delicious as well. So, say you have a lung type issue like congestion or a chesty kind of cough in the winter months. And if you make a herbal tea with things like mullein or thyme, for example, it's just tasty, nice tea to drink that just happens to totally clear out your chest and heal you at the same time, instead of taking some horrible, nasty, synthetic, chemical tasting cough syrup that doesn't do your body any favors. It's kind of amazing that these plants are out there. Then there's all these crazy sort of mystical, spiritual type plants as well. Like there's one called mugwort, which would be another one. So mugwort has deep sort of folklore and mythological uses across a couple of cultures in Europe. But one of the ones that kind of blows my mind most about it is, have you ever heard of lucid dreaming?
Yes, I have.
Well, mugwort can help to induce lucid dreaming. And when you manage to successfully get into a lucid dreaming state, if you have drank mugwort consistently in tea for a while beforehand, it can help you to stay in the lucid dreaming state and to have a little bit more sort of consciousness in that state. And anyone who believes in that kind of thing, that believes dreams have meaning, then suddenly you have the capacity to explore that aspect of our subconscious mind that is just totally off limits to most of us. And it's just a herb that just
Wow.
grows by water. And I could go on and on, hundreds of plants like this, but they all have unique properties and amazing things they can do for us.
That's incredible, Ben. Thanks for sharing about that. I know it's probably common knowledge to you and it's probably beyond its awe and shock factor for you, but even just for myself, that is incredible to hear. It's just so cool. And it just sounds like magic and fairy tale behavior. It doesn't even sound real. And it's just crazy that that's just nature. We're
Mm-hmm.
so held back from the wonders of the world sometimes, especially when it comes to like even just like the spaces of energy healing and what we can untrap within our bodies just by like using tuning forks or
Mm-hmm.
ancient practices of movement and then just the ground is full of magic. That's just crazy what it can produce.
All around us. Just need to open up and observe it.
Like you say, yeah. Observe,
Mm-hmm.
interact, and respond. Well, Ben, if I'll let us wrap this one up, but I'd love for you to be able to answer one more question if that's all right with you.
Absolutely. Ask away.
I would I would love to hear your perspective on what it would look like if an entire we'll say I know you're going to change the world, Ben, all of it. But if we're just looking at one area, let's say like all of Ireland was able to implement these food forests and everyone had access to healthy, nutrient dense food and um, the forests maintained themselves, we could live slower, we could heal from any ailment. What would that look like? How would that change the way we live?
I think probably the most noticeable or the most rapid impact that we would be able to see from that would be our health. I've heard people say online, or sort of inspirational or motivational quotes of, you can have 1,000 problems in your life until your health fails, and then you've only got one. If you're less than ideally healthy if you've got some kind of a long-term or threatening sickness or physical condition or whatever it may be. Your whole life is a challenge, a struggle, a problem. Every other problem just seems totally insignificant in comparison. So if we just fix that one thing alone, just imagine how much easier life would be for everyone. They don't have all these things dragging them down, costing them all this money to treat and to fix. And with all that weight lifted off them, then they'd have so much more space to be open, to be kind, to connect to people, to be generous, to pursue their passions, whatever that may be. I reckon it's quite likely that fixing human health will have a knock-on effect to kind of begin to tackle all the remaining problems afterwards. If you're not feeling good, if you're not strong and healthy and full of vitality, then I don't think anybody really has the capacity to be pushing forward, to be trying to solve big problems. You're in survival mode. So we got to get out of survival mode first before we can start living, get into the flow state.
That is a great answer. And I'm just going to push my luck. I really need to ask one more thing because that answer is so brilliant. It's really inspired a lot of thought, Ben, and I'm really imagining what you said earlier about how we're looking to strive and evolve, and our society and our capitalist nature is to innovate, to improve, to keep moving forward. And that's great and all. But then after hearing you speak about all the magic that can come from plants and from earth, it got me thinking, what about if we did kind of move away from this type of idea of evolution or growth, or, hustle culture that's bringing us to nowhere? If we did all just have our health, if we did have our time, if we did have access to all these magic plants, from your perspective of the world you live in and all of the like nature magic that you have going on in your lens and from your perspective, what do you think? Do you think we could still progress as humans and evolve and create this type of evolution and improvement and innovation in a different, more natural way? Like, because I think a lot of people think if we go natural, then we'll be going back to, like you said before in the chat, we'll be going back to primal. Like we'll be primal and useless. But it doesn't sound like that's the case at all. It sounds like we'd be accessing some whole new magical potential. What do you say to that?
I think that's a fascinating question to ask. I think a lot of people would see that as going backwards, to go back to something more primitive, more simple, where you're just tree huggers living, digging for roots and trying to feed yourself from day to day. And certainly in the early days when I started talking about food forests and this idealistic view of the world that I've had, people would say it's not really realistic, you can't expect people to give up the comforts of modern life and the way that the world is today. I definitely don't think we need to. Those are extreme examples. I think there is a way to blend those two worlds together, to take all the technology and the advancements and the wisdom of the world we live in today, and then bring back all the wisdom and the systems and knowledge that was in place from sort of our ancestors. Blend those together and build something new. We're maybe at a tipping point or at a critical point here, and that could be the next step. What that's going to look like, I honestly don't know, but I'm very excited to go and try and figure it out and to become part of that engine driving that forward rather than the other direction, or rather than just sort of sitting on my heels and hoping that it'll happen. I like to think that we will always have that innovative nature. I think it's kind of in our essence as human beings. Like I said, we're social creatures before, but I think we're innovators and problem solvers also. I don't think we're built to just sit around and be comfortable and do nothing. I think we're hardwired to build, to push, to grow, to expand. So, but I think the world is just infinitely full of possibilities and potential. I don't know what the next steps are, but I have zero doubt that we're going to go and find something else, some new avenue to pursue, to some new industry to push or to design, or who knows. But that's kind of exciting. No, I don't really want to know. If I knew everything, then life wouldn't be so interesting. I want to go figure it out.
I hear you. I fully agree. I'm very excited to see where this all takes you, and I'm excited to see and track along with the work you're doing, Ben. Thank you so much for coming on and for teaching us about what you do. It's been such a pleasure to have you on.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.